In this French Connections, we'll take you through a massive arrondissement, 3 times the size of the first.
The 17th covers most of the northwestern part of the capital, starting at the Arc de Triomphe and fanning out all the way to the edge of Paris.
Coming up, we'll take you behind the scenes of Napoleon's famous Arc and give you an in-depth look at the man who transformed the 17th arrondissement and most of Paris, the Baron Haussmann.
And whether it's Haussmannian apartments or a giant glass tower dominating the landscape, the 17th has some of the most diverse architecture in all of Paris.
Join us as we discover the many wonders of the 17e.
The 17th arrondissement is largely residential, and it's often overlooked due to its lack of obvious attractions.
But one thing it does have is incredible and varied architecture. You'll find classical Parisian apartment blocks right next to more contemporary buildings like the Mairie du 17e, the only of the 20 town halls that's housed in a modern building.
The 17th also has eco-buildings covered in greenery and a giant glass courthouse, making the structure symbolically transparent.
Ever since the Middle Ages, Parisian justice was handled out of this iconic building surrounding the Sainte-Chapelle in the heart of Paris. But after centuries, a growing lack of space required a brand new Palais de Justice building, and the 17th arrondissement was picked to house it. Situated right on the northwestern edge of the capital, the Paris law courts were designed by the man who also created the Pompidou Center, Italian architect Renzo Piano. He was intent on creating an edifice that broke with convention.
Une tour, ça ne marcherait pas. Ça serait gigantesque, ça serait en plus une barrière insupportable entre la ville de Paris et le reste du Grand Paris. C'est aussi un symbole qu'il faut qu'il échappe au risque d'être un symbole de puissance, vous voyez, de pouvoir. Les tours, assez souvent, deviennent un petit peu des objets arrogants.
At 160 meters high, the 3 glass towers of the courthouse make it the second tallest building in Paris after the Tour Montparnasse. Justice meets sustainability, as the structure features enough solar panels to help supply the building's own energy. The courthouse is situated on an L-shaped site between the city's Ring Road and Martin Luther King Park, a key part of the 17th's Clichy-Batignolles eco-district. Built over a former rail yard, the 54-hectare neighborhood is a world-class model of urban sustainability. The vibrant, zero-carbon neighborhood is now home to 7,500 Parisians. One architectural wonder you've certainly heard of is this one, l'Arc de Triomphe.
The Arch of Triumph holds a prominent spot on the plaza known as Charles de Gaulle Étoile that sits at the intersection of the 17th, the 16th, and the 8th.
And we're off to get a behind-the-scenes tour of this iconic monument with the cultural director, Viviana Gobato.
Viviana, bonjour.
Bonjour, Genie.
What's the history of the Arc of Triumph? Who built it and why?
Well, the Arc de Triomphe was designed by Napoleon at the very beginning of the 19th century. The idea for him was to celebrate the great army. So he started indeed to construct the arch in 1806, but really the monument was finished in 1836.
Why did it take so long to build?
Well, the very beginning of the 19th century was particularly difficult for France. I mean, there were different crises, political crises. This is the reason why the emperor had to abdicate in 1814. Then there was like a long period of no works on the arch of about 9 years. The following king decided to restart the construction in 1823, and then it took indeed another long time until 1836 with the final king of France, Louis-Philippe I. When we think of the arch, we think of Napoleon, but finally he has never seen the arch finished, indeed.
And is it true that there was a temporary arch made out of wood?
It is true, indeed. Well, in 1810, he had his second marriage with Marie-Louise, the Archduchess of Austria. And so, in order to celebrate that marriage, they decided to build a fake arch in the same emplacement, a wooden arch, in order to celebrate the passage of Napoleon and his new wife.
And there are a lot of really interesting sculptures on the outside of the Arc de Triomphe, and some of them were quite scandalous at the time.
Well, we have about 22 artists that worked on the arch, and in two different styles, neoclassical style and romantic style. And there was a particular sculptor, François Rude, who designed one sculpture called the Marseillaise, or the Departure of the Volunteers. And they decided that that image had to be quite sensual, which was very different from the neoclassical style. And so the Genie, the allegory, was designed with open legs, we could say. And at that time, that was scandalous because she was meant to bring such a sensuality on a very military monument.
And the Arc de Triomphe offers one of the best views of Paris, right?
Yes, let's go.
Let's go to the terrace, okay. Wow, it is so incredible up here, and it's on a really special access from the Louvre to the Arc de Triomphe to La Défense. Was that access an accident or a choice?
This was a choice, indeed. You have to know that at the beginning, the arch was designed for the Bastille Square, and finally this emplacement was chosen in order to have, indeed, the same view from the Imperial Palace at the Tuileries Gardens. And so the emperor at that time, Napoleon, wanted to see the arch in the same axis of his place.
Over the years, so many people have marched through the Arc de Triomphe. Tell us a bit more about that.
Well, at the beginning, there were particularly people from the military, from the army. And finally, you have to know that the arch was at the beginning designed as a door, as an antiquity. So the idea was for the army to pass through the arch. But after the burial of the unknown soldier in 1921, the passage was closed. And so nowadays, we pass around the arch. Every year, we do have for July the 14, the National Day, and indeed there is a sense of march, and the army starts from the arch to the Concorde because it is the victorious march.
Now, would you say that this is the best view of Paris because there's a rivalry with the Eiffel Tower? Which one do you prefer?
Well, I would say the arch is indeed the best place to see Paris because we are somehow on the top on a hill. So we have kind of a proximity with the different architectures, with the streets, the avenues, and it is so nice to indeed admire Paris, but being on the top, but not so far from the roofs.
Yeah, you're high, but not too high. It's perfect. Viviane, thank you so much for telling us about the Arc de Triomphe.
Thank you, Genie and Flo.
If Napoleon Bonaparte came up with the idea for the iconic Arc de Triomphe, it was his nephew, Napoleon III, who really transformed the 17th arrondissement of Paris and the whole city in general.
But of course, he didn't do it alone, and two key names associated with the urbanization of Paris at the time are the Pereire brothers, and their name lives on in this long park, as well as the boulevard that goes along a former train line.
Émile and Isaac Pereire were French entrepreneurs who helped finance much of Napoleon's reimagining of the city.
And they worked very closely with the man whose name is most associated with the Second Empire's transformation of Paris, the Baron Haussmann.
In the 1800s, Paris was a dark labyrinth of narrow medieval streets with frequent cholera outbreaks. Napoleon III wanted to bring light and hygiene into Paris, so in 1853 he handpicked Baron Georges Eugène Haussmann to modernize and harmonize the chaotic capital. Though not technically an architect, he was the prefect of the Seine, so basically the boss of Paris. Together, this dynamic duo kicked off a gigantic urban makeover, transforming 60% of the capital in record time. In less than 20 years, 20,000 buildings were demolished, 30,000 were constructed. 600 kilometers of sewer lines were laid, as well as pipes pumping in drinking water. Out with medieval spaghetti streets, in with wide, dramatic avenues designed to create epic perspectives ending in monuments like the Champs-Élysées. The city also became greener. 80,000 trees were planted and several parks were created in and around the capital. Haussmann created one of the most recognizable urban styles on Earth, with unified lamps, benches, kiosks, and of course the iconic Haussmannian buildings. But this urban facelift didn't make everyone happy. At the time, critics accused Haussmann of not only destroying Paris's medieval heritage, but also pushing poor populations out to the periphery. Not to mention that by making it easier to circulate, he made it harder to revolt and build barricades during revolutions. Today, however, Haussmann is remembered for creating Paris's signature aesthetic.
One of Baron Haussmann's prettiest and biggest public parks was this one, the English-style Square des Batignolles. And while today it gives the Batignolles area its villagey feel, back then, not everybody liked it.
Author Émile Zola lived nearby in the 17th arrondissement when the park was built, and he hated it. He said it looked like a piece of nature that had misbehaved and been put in jail. It didn't stop him, though, from using the square as a setting for several of his novels.
The Batignolles area is also known as the birthplace of Impressionism, giving its name to a group of young avant-garde artists from the late 19th century. Cézanne, Degas, Renoir, and Monet were all part of the so-called Batignolles group because they would come and spend time with their other artist friend, Edouard Manet, near his art studio.
And many of them were immortalized in a painting alongside Émile Zola called A Studio at Les Batignolles by Henri Fontaine-Latour that you can still see at the Musée d'Orsay.
Well, that wraps it up for this show. Thank you so much for wandering around the 17th arrondissement with us, and we'll see you soon for the next neighborhood edition of French Connections.